With Posr, I've been involved in this case for quite a number of years. Both of us have been working on it since 1997.
Exactly.
So it's very important to have that whole court proceeding on tape.
Exactly. You get the demeanor of the person,
Right.
the characters.
Now, before we get a call from Mr. Posr, he's going to call in on the show.
He should be calling any
he'll
minute.
be calling from a federal prison in the state of North Carolina. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the incident that led to the subject case, that led to the conviction of Posr.
Well, let's start, since he's not here yet.
Okay. In June 2004, Posr, who is an independent journalist, and he's a producer here at Manhattan Neighborhood Network. He produced a cable access television show here in the studios of MNN. He filed papers with the district court, Southern District, Eastern District, Southeast District of New York, the court down at 500 Pearl Street, okay, requesting permission to videotape the trial, the fraud terror trial of attorney Lynn Stewart. For those of our viewers who don't know who Lynn Stewart is an internationally known lawyer who spent her entire career defending people of moderate means and people who were saddled with politically motivated cases, people who had become the targets of the ruling establishment or the state, the so-called state. She represented some very high-profile clients. She represented Larry Davis. She represented the blind sheik, who was convicted of masterminding the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center, which is a can of worms that we won't get into for the purposes of this show. But let me just say that the government's official explanation of any event is never what actually happened. And there's much more to the story behind the 1993 bombing. Maybe we can explore that on another show. So Posr submitted documents to the court requesting permission to film the trial of Lynn Stewart, to make a record of the proceedings in that case. And the judge did not respond to Posr's paperwork that he had submitted to the court. So Posr went to court in June 2004 during the trial of Lynn Stewart, and he attempted to enter the courtroom so that he could orally request to the judge permission to film the proceedings.
Right.
And as he attempted to enter the courtroom, he was blocked by court security officers, and he was then arrested, and he was falsely arrested, and he was fraudulently charged with a serious crime. He was charged with assault on a federal officer. Okay? The case against Posr was a complete fabrication, and I'll say why. I'll give you a few reasons why the case was a complete fabrication. Number one, the court officer who initially confronted Posr as he tried to enter the courtroom was contract court security officer Russo.
Right.
But Russo did not testify against Posr during the trial. Apparently, the federal prosecutors lacked confidence in contract court security officer Russo. So the prosecution inserted another contract court security officer, and his name is Peter Fokianos. And Peter Fokianos testified in place of court security officer Russo because the prosecution felt that he would be a stronger witness for the prosecution. So there was a missing witness.
So the other witness wasn't able to lie. Is that
Right.
what you're saying?
And for some strange reason, Mr. Posr did not raise this issue. He raised it to me in our private discussions about the case, but he did not raise this issue in the court. And he did not effectively set forth the defense that the case is a fraud. The fraud is sufficient to divest the court of all jurisdiction and to make the judge and the prosecutor in this case and the so-called witnesses actionable for lawsuits for damages, right? And divests the court of subject matter jurisdiction.
Right.
And the
But
judge,
did he win the first time on jurisdiction?
no, he did not. No, he did not, and I will explain that after I go through
Okay.
the other points. But so Mr. Fokianos is the government's fraudulent star witness. Now, Fokianos, from what I understand, was not even present during the incident from which the subject case stems. So another element of fraud in this case is the fact that contract court security officers are not federal officers.
That's the most important part.
So even
So
if,
then this wouldn't be a federal crime in federal court.
well, it would not be a crime that fits the definition of the charges against Mr. Posr, the charges of which he was convicted of.
Right.
Because the person is not a federal officer. Now, contract court security officers are actually private contractors. Each one is a private contractor. They enter into contract for the sale of their labor with a company called ACAL Security. Now, if a person were to attempt to locate ACAL Security to get their business addressed, all they would find is a post office box in the state of Arizona. So it seems to be like a very shady operation. It doesn't even seem like it's a legitimate business.
Maybe we should do an in-depth investigation into that company.
Well, on the
later.
contract,
That's another show.
right, on the contract that each individual signs with ACAL Security, it is expressly stated in the language of that contract that they are not federal officers, and they are not to represent themselves as federal officers. During the trial of Posr, Peter Fokianos represented himself as a federal officer, even going so far as to show a badge from the Marshal's Service.
Wow.
That call, you're supposed to get a call from Posr.
Yeah,
right?
apparently something's wrong with the phones, or he's not calling in. I can't understand why that's happening, but maybe I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But at least we're getting his story out.
Yeah. So the first trial, we already spoke about how he was convicted of
Yes,
the charges.
and I witnessed being stacked because I was right by the door. I could hear them talking, and they all went in favor of Posr. And this one male kept convincing everybody they shouldn't pay attention. And they wanted to go home. People are so insensitive, apathetic, selfish, that it's more important that they go home to their loved ones and put in innocent people in jail for their convenience.
Right. So the federal prosecutors probably had at least one person on the jury who stuck to their guns, and would not change his position. He voted guilty. Right. He decided that Posr was guilty in advance of any trial.
Exactly.
And stuck to his guns and wore the other people out. The people, they just wanted to go home to they wanted to go to work the next day. They wanted to get out of there.